I always thought I knew what my son wanted for Christmas. I thought it would be a toy, a video game, maybe a new football, something simple, something loud. But a few days before Christmas, I was picking up laundry from under his bed, and I found a letter. Not just any letter, a letter to Santa. It was folded in half, scribbled in blue crayon on lined notebook paper. No envelope, no stamp, just lying there like it had been forgotten. I almost didn't read it, but I did, and when I did, everything stopped. He wrote, "Dear Santa, I don't want anything this year. I just want you to make my mom smile again." I remember standing there in his room, socks in one hand, that letter in the other, and my knees just gave out. He never said a word about it. He never showed me. He never asked if I'd mailed it. He just wrote it, quietly, like a wish he didn't believe he was allowed to say out loud. My name is Alara Quinn. I'm a single mom. I live in a small, snow-covered neighborhood just outside Bend, Oregon, and this past year broke me in ways I didn't even notice until I saw them through my son's eyes. My boy's name is Jonah. He's 8. He has this wild brown hair that never listens to a comb and these giant eyes that seem to notice everything, even when I think he's not paying attention, especially when I think he's not paying attention. Since my mom died last February, I haven't been the same. I go to work. I make dinner. I do the bedtime stories and the morning cereal and the backpacks and the bills. But I haven't really been here. And somehow, Jonah knew. Every time he saw me staring into space, every time I told him I was fine when I wasn't, he stored it. And instead of asking for a toy or a trip or a treat, he asked Santa to give me my smile back. What kind of child does that? He didn't want anything. He just wanted me to be okay again. I kept thinking, how long had he been watching me like that? Carrying that kind of love around with no place to put it? I didn't know what to do with the letter. I tucked it in the top drawer of my nightstand and cried until I couldn't see straight. I didn't tell Jonah I found it. I didn't want him to feel like I'd taken something from him. It felt sacred, private, like I'd stumbled into a prayer. But that letter? It stayed with me. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and hear his words in my head. Just make my mom smile again. I couldn't stop hearing it. Then, on Christmas morning, something happened. After the wrapping paper had settled and the cocoa had gone cold, Jonah pointed to a box under the tree. One I didn't recognize. It had no tag, no name. Just plain brown paper and a thin white ribbon tied in a crooked knot. I thought it was from him, maybe something he made at school, but he shook his head. "I didn't put that there," he said. "Maybe Santa did." I laughed, but then I opened it. Inside was a photo album, thick, leather-bound, and old enough to smell like memories, and on top of it, a note. It read, "You gave me everything. I'm giving a piece back." My hands shook when I picked it up, because I knew whatever was in that box, it wasn't just a gift, it was an answer, and I wasn't ready for what came next. My name is Alara Quinn. I'm 32. I work as a registered nurse at a small community hospital in Bend, Oregon. It's the kind of town where you know the cashier's name and your neighbors shovel each other's driveways. It's quiet, peaceful, or at least it used to be. I live in a modest 2-bedroom house with my son, Jonah. He's 8, and the best parts of me live in him. He was born in the middle of a thunderstorm, screaming like he was already full of opinions. He's funny, kind, stubborn, and more thoughtful than any child should have to be. Last Christmas was our first one without my mom, Maggie. She passed away from pancreatic cancer in February. She lived with us for the last few months of her life. Jonah and I took care of her together. She died in the room that's now our laundry closet, and I haven't moved the chair she used to sit in. I still catch myself glancing at it, expecting her to be there, humming under her breath while she knits or folds towels. Grief is strange. It doesn't always come in waves like people say. Sometimes it comes like fog, thick, heavy, dull. It creeps into your chest and sits there. It makes your favorite songs feel like noise. It makes dinner taste like cardboard. It makes a good morning feel like a chore. Since she died, I've been going through the motions, working long shifts at the hospital, trying to keep bills paid and the house clean. On the outside, I probably looked like I had it under control. But I wasn't really present. I wasn't laughing like I used to. I wasn't smiling the way Jonah remembered. And kids notice. They notice even when you think you're doing a good job of hiding it. I'd catch Jonah watching me sometimes when he thought I wasn't looking. He'd sit at the kitchen counter, doing his homework, and glance up every few seconds just to check. I always smiled back. A tight, practiced smile, the kind that doesn't reach your eyes. One night in early December, he asked, "Did Grandma like Christmas?" I said, "She loved it. She used to put way too many lights on the porch." He nodded, then went quiet. I could tell he was thinking hard about something. Then he whispered, "I miss her too." It caught me off guard. I think I forget sometimes that grief doesn't only belong to grown-ups. Jonah lost her too. She tucked him in, made him pancakes with chocolate chip smiles, and taught him to play cards. He remembered her laugh. He missed it. That night, after he went to bed, I stayed up looking through the old photo boxes. I hadn't touched them in months. They were buried in the closet under beach towels and winter coats. I looked at pictures of my mom holding Jonah as a baby, her hair wild from the wind, both of them laughing with their whole faces. I thought about how I used to be in those pictures, open, warm, joyful. I wondered where that woman went. The truth is, I didn't know how to move forward. I was scared to feel better, like it meant I was leaving my mom behind. But grief doesn't mean forgetting, and healing doesn't mean replacing. Christmas was coming, and I was dreading it. The decorations felt forced, the music grated on me. I told Jonah we'd still do the tree, still bake the cookies, still make it special. But my heart wasn't in it. He didn't complain, he never complained, he just tried harder. He left silly notes in my lunch bag. He folded laundry without being asked. One morning, I found a drawing he left on the fridge. It was me, with a big smile, holding hands with him and Grandma. Above it, he wrote in shaky letters, "Best Christmas ever." I cried in the bathroom that night so he wouldn't hear. Looking back, I realized Jonah was trying to remind me of something, that we were still here, that joy hadn't disappeared, it had just gotten quieter. And maybe, deep down, that's why he wrote that letter. Maybe he knew what I needed better than I did. Before I found the letter, I thought I was the one protecting him, but in truth, he was the one holding me together. And that's where our story really begins. It started as a regular Thursday. I had the day off from the hospital, so I planned to catch up on housework and laundry. The washing machine was humming, and Jonah was at school. His room was a mess, as usual. Toy dinosaurs scattered across the rug, markers without caps, wrinkled socks tucked behind the dresser. I was half listening to a podcast and mentally preparing to scrub the baseboards when I reached under his bed for a pile of clothes. That's when I saw it. A single piece of paper, half tucked under the leg of his nightstand. Blue ink scribbles filled the page, bent at the corners, crumpled like it had been handled more than once. At first I thought it was homework, but when I opened it and saw "Dear Santa" across the top, my heart stopped. Jonah hadn't mentioned a letter to Santa. He usually made a big deal out of it. Last year, he spent 3 days writing and decorating it, carefully listing out everything from action figures to a robot dog he'd seen on TV. But this year, nothing. The handwriting was unmistakably his. Slanted letters, misspelled words, that careful mix of hope and hesitation only a child can express. He wrote, "Dear Santa, I don't want anything for me this year. I just want you to bring my mom a smile. She's trying really hard, but I know she's still sad. She misses Grandma Maggie. I miss her too. I think if you help her smile, it will help me too. That's all I want. Love, Jonah." By the time I finished reading, I was sitting on the edge of his bed with my hand over my mouth. I didn't cry right away. It was the kind of shock that sinks in slowly, like your body knows before your brain does. The way he said, "She's trying really hard," broke me. He saw everything. He noticed every moment I tried to hold it together, every time I smiled with my mouth and not my eyes. He felt it all. And instead of asking for toys or games or a bike like any other kid, he gave his wish away. I had no idea he was carrying that weight. I had spent so much time trying to protect him from my grief that I didn't realize how much he was protecting me from his. That letter wasn't just sweet, it was a cry for help disguised as love. He was reaching out, trying to save the only parent he had left from disappearing into sadness. I folded the letter and placed it in the back of my journal next to a photo of my mom. Then I went to the bathroom, shut the door, and let myself fall apart. That night, at dinner, I looked at Jonah differently. I watched the way he pushed peas around his plate and told me about gym class like everything was normal. I smiled at his stories, but inside I was shaken. I kept hearing the letter in my head, line by line. I wanted to ask him about it. I wanted to tell him I found it, to hug him and say thank you, to explain how much it meant to me. But I didn't. Not yet. There was something about the privacy of that letter that felt sacred, like a window into his heart he hadn't meant for me to see. So I stayed quiet, and instead I started paying attention. He wasn't just my little boy. He was grieving, too, and he was trying to be strong, for me. After dinner, while he watched cartoons, I stood in the hallway with the letter in my hand and made a decision. I had to do better. I had to show up for him the way he was showing up for me. I couldn't let him carry the burden of my healing. That wasn't his job, but I also knew I couldn't fake it. He would see right through that. What I needed was to remember who I was before all this, who I was when my mom was still here, who I wanted to be for Jonah. And that meant facing what I had avoided for months. Grief doesn't end in a moment. But in that moment, I decided to stop hiding from it, because my son deserved a mother who could feel again, and I was ready to try. The night after I found Jonah's letter, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing his words over and over, echoing in the silence of my room. He wasn't just asking Santa to help me smile. He was asking for something deeper. He needed to know I was still here with him, not just physically, but emotionally. Around 2 a.m, I got out of bed and went into the hallway closet. I pulled down a heavy cardboard box I hadn't touched in months. It was labeled Mom in black marker. I had packed it after her funeral, sealing it up quickly like I could trap the pain inside. I carried it to the kitchen table and sat in the glow of the oven light. Inside were photo albums, birthday cards, a few scarves that still smelled faintly like her favorite lavender lotion, and a notebook she used to write lists in. Grocery lists, reminders, random thoughts. Her handwriting made my throat tighten. I opened the first photo album. The pages were stiff from age, some edges curling from time. There was a picture of my mom holding baby Jonah on the porch, her arms wrapped around him like she could shield him from the entire world. There was another of us at the lake, Jonah covered in mud, my mom laughing with her whole face. I didn't cry this time. I just smiled. It was small, but real. That's when I knew what I had to do. I needed to take the weight Jonah had been carrying and share it. I needed to remind both of us that the love we lost was still here in a different form. It wasn't about getting past it. It was about letting it walk with us. The next morning, while Jonah was at school, I went to the craft store and bought a new photo album. I spent the entire day printing pictures, cutting little paper captions, and sorting through memories like they were puzzle pieces I had forgotten how to arrange. I called in a favor at the hospital and got 2 more days off. I didn't clean the house. I didn't return emails. I just worked on that album. I wanted it to be a gift, not for Christmas, not from Santa, just something between us. A bridge back to each other. Each page told a story. I added pictures of Jonah and my mom at the pumpkin patch, at the kitchen table painting Easter eggs, in the backyard raking leaves. I taped in one of Grandma Maggie's old recipes, the one for cinnamon French toast Jonah loved. I found a little note she had once written him that said, "You are brave, you are kind, and you are deeply loved." I put that near the last page, in bold handwriting. That night, Jonah came home and found me sitting on the floor, surrounded by pictures and scraps of paper. He tilted his head and asked, "What are you doing?" I smiled and said, "I'm remembering." He didn't ask anything else. He sat beside me and started looking through a pile of old Polaroids. "Grandma looks happy here," he said, pointing to one where she was blowing out candles on a cake. "She was. You made her really happy," I told him. We spent hours like that, flipping through images, telling stories. Jonah asked questions, some hard, some simple. I answered all of them. For the first time in months, the sadness didn't feel like a wall. It felt like a window. Over the next few days, we started making small changes. We baked Grandma's French toast together. We played cards at the kitchen table, just like she used to. We hung up some of her old ornaments on the tree. And every time Jonah smiled, I felt something start to shift inside me. On Christmas Eve, I wrapped the album in plain paper and tucked it on the bookshelf. I didn't label it. I didn't plan to give it to him that day. It wasn't a surprise. It was just something waiting for the right moment. I wasn't expecting anything in return. I didn't need a box or a bow to feel like I had done something meaningful. For the first time in almost a year, I felt like I was moving forward, not away from my mom, just toward the person I wanted to be again. And Jonah. He felt it too. He didn't say anything, but I could tell. The space between us wasn't quiet anymore. It was full of something we both understood. Christmas morning arrived under a sky the color of frost. Light snow had fallen overnight, covering the porch and dusting the windowsills like powdered sugar. Inside, the house was warm, glowing from the soft yellow lights we'd wrapped around the banister. Jonah was already awake, sitting on the floor beside the tree in his pajamas, holding a mug of cocoa too big for his hands. He smiled when I came in. "Merry Christmas, Mama," he said. I sat down next to him, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Merry Christmas, baby." We didn't have many gifts under the tree that year. I had kept things simple. A new set of paints for Jonah, a hoodie he'd been eyeing at the mall, a few little stocking surprises. He opened each one with quiet excitement, smiling politely even at the socks. His eyes lit up when he saw the paints. "You remembered," he said. "That meant more to me than anything." We laughed. We took pictures. We played music. I let myself enjoy the moment, fully present for the first time in a long time. I thought that would be the high point of the day. But then Jonah reached for one last gift, one I hadn't seen before. It was tucked behind the tree, wrapped in simple brown paper and tied with a white ribbon. There was no tag, no name, just the box. "I didn't put that there," I said. Jonah looked up at me. "I didn't either. Maybe Santa did." I smiled, thinking maybe someone from work had dropped something off. A neighbor, a friend. But I didn't recognize the handwriting on the tag. Actually, there was no handwriting at all. No note, no label. I carefully untied the ribbon and opened the box. Inside was a leather-bound photo album. It looked old but cared for. The cover was soft and smooth, embossed with faint gold lettering. "For Alara." My chest tightened. I opened the first page. It was a picture I had never seen before. My mother, Maggie, holding newborn Jonah in the hospital. Her face lit up with pride and pure joy. The date was written in her handwriting. June 3rd, 2015. I turned the page. Another photo, this time of me and my mom at my nursing school graduation. Then one of her in the garden, laughing, hands covered in dirt. The photos kept coming, each one more personal than the last. And then I reached a folded note tucked between two pages. I pulled it out and read, "You gave me everything. I'm giving a piece back." That's all it said. No signature, no explanation. I looked up at Jonah. He was watching me with wide, waiting eyes. "Who gave you this?" I asked. He shrugged. It was just there. I thought maybe it was from Grandma. I held the album tightly, flipping through more pages. There were scanned recipes from her collection, notes written in her handwriting to me, ones I had never seen before. One said, "You're stronger than you think. You always have been." Another, clipped to the bottom corner of a birthday photo, read, "The world needs your light. Don't hide it." I had no idea who could have made this. Some of these photos I didn't even know existed. Some were old film prints from before Jonah was born. Some looked like they were taken on my mom's old camera, the one I thought she had given away years ago. Tears filled my eyes. I wasn't sad, not this time. It felt like she had found a way to reach me, like someone, somewhere, had known I needed this. Maybe it was one of her friends or a cousin who had quietly gathered these things after she passed. Maybe it was someone at the hospice who had access to her belongings. I didn't know, and in that moment, it didn't matter. Jonah moved closer to me. "Are you okay?" I nodded, still holding the album. "Yeah," I said. "I think I really am." He leaned his head on my shoulder and whispered, "I told Santa." I knew he could help. I smiled through the tears. Looks like he listened. We sat there, the two of us wrapped in a quiet peace, the kind that doesn't need words or music or bright lights to feel real, just love and memory and something bigger than both. Whoever sent that box didn't just give me an album, they gave me a doorway, a way back to myself. And that morning, for the first time in a year, I felt whole. The days after Christmas felt different, not because of the gifts or the snowfall or even the photo album, though that changed everything. It was something quieter, something inside me that had started to shift. For the first time since my mom passed, I didn't feel like I was walking through life with my head down. That mysterious box didn't just give me memories, it gave me clarity. It reminded me that love doesn't end when a person is gone. It doesn't disappear into silence. It stays. It lingers in the pages of photo albums, in the warmth of a child's drawing, in the recipes you still cook with your eyes closed. On the morning after Christmas, I made cinnamon French toast with Jonah. I followed my mom's recipe from the album. The paper was yellowed and creased, written in her familiar handwriting, and for the first time I didn't cry when I read it. I smiled. I could hear her voice again, not just in my memory, but in the way Jonah giggled when he spilled too much cinnamon on the counter. We sat at the kitchen table and ate together. Jonah talked about his favorite present. He said it wasn't the paints or the hoodie or the candy from his stocking. It was the album, he said. It's like getting a piece of grandma back. I nodded. Me too. Later that week, we started adding to the album. Not with old pictures, but with new ones. Jonah drew a picture of him and Grandma Maggie in heaven, playing cards. I printed a photo of us baking together and glued it to the back page. We weren't just holding on to the past, we were building something new from it. That small act, sitting together, remembering out loud, became our way of healing. Grief didn't leave, but it changed shape. It stopped feeling like a weight and started feeling like a thread, something that connected me to my mom, to Jonah, and to the version of myself I thought I had lost. I went back to work the following Monday, and my coworkers noticed something right away. "You look lighter," one of the nurses said, "like you're here again." I was. I was fully present in a way I hadn't been for nearly a year. I listened more deeply. I laughed more easily. I came home and actually sat with Jonah instead of just being in the room. One night, as I tucked him into bed, he asked, "Did Santa really send the album?" I paused. I could have told him the truth, that we didn't know who sent it, that it might have been someone from Grandma's past. But I looked at his hopeful face and I realized something. It didn't matter how the album arrived. What mattered was what it gave us. "I think Santa helped," I said, "and maybe Grandma did too." He smiled, turned on his side, and whispered, "I knew she'd find a way." That night, I sat in the living room with the album on my lap and turned through every page again. I ran my fingers over the notes, the pictures, the little fingerprints Jonah had added in crayon and marker. It was more than a gift. It was a reminder that healing doesn't come all at once. It comes in small, beautiful moments when we choose to keep going. I used to think strength meant not falling apart. Now I know strength is letting yourself feel it all and still choosing to get back up. It's asking for help, even silently. It's being seen and loved, even when you're at your lowest. Jonah didn't just ask Santa to bring me a smile. He reminded me that I deserved one. And whoever sent that album, whether it was an old friend, a family member, or something bigger than I can explain, understood exactly what I needed. A piece of the past, handed back with care. And the message was clear. You're not alone, you never were. You just forgot for a little while. Now, every time I pass the bookshelf and see that album, I remember who I am. A daughter, a mother, a woman still learning how to carry both love and loss at once. And I smile. Because somehow, against the odds, a little boy's wish brought me home. Thank you for being here and listening to my story. If you've ever lost someone, if you've ever felt like you were holding everything together with just your fingertips, I hope this reminded you that healing is possible. And sometimes it begins with something as small as a letter, or a smile, or the quiet love of someone who sees more than you realize. If this story touched you, please like the video. It helps more people find it. Share it with someone who might need a little light today. And if you want more real stories like this one, filled with heart, hope, and the things that matter most, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And finally, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's the one moment in your life that reminded you you're not alone? Until next time, be kind to yourself. You never know how much someone needs you, especially the ones closest to you. Take care. At my own baby shower, surrounded by laughter, pastel balloons, and people I loved, I felt invisible. My mother-in-law, Delilah, stood up, smiling like a queen in front of her court. She reached into a large, glossy gift bag and started handing out presents. One for her sister, one for her cousin, one for my sister-in-law. Every person she handed a gift to looked surprised but grateful, murmuring thank you as they opened small boxes filled with candles, bracelets, monogrammed towels. I sat there smiling, waiting, thinking mine must be last. Maybe she had saved something personal for me. After all, I was the one carrying her first grandchild. But when she reached the bottom of the bag and looked up, her eyes met mine. And then she turned her back. People fell silent. I laughed nervously. "Delilah?" I said. She didn't smile this time. Instead, she turned around, looked directly at me, and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I didn't bring you anything. I'm not celebrating a mistake." For a second, I thought I had misheard her. But then the silence around me turned heavy. Everyone froze. Some looked away. A few glanced at Tyler, my husband, but he just stared at the floor. He said nothing, not a single word. My face went hot. My hands shook in my lap. I was surrounded by friends, family, people who were supposed to support me, and I felt completely alone. Until Rick, my stepfather, stood up, calmly, quietly, but with purpose. He walked toward me without saying a word at first. The room was still. Then he pulled a tiny velvet box from his jacket and said, "This was your mother's. She'd want the baby to have it." That was when the silence broke, and that was when everything changed. My name is Amira. I'm 28 years old, and I'm 8 months pregnant with my first child. I wish I could say this journey has been all joy and glowing smiles. But the truth is, it's been a roller coaster of fear, excitement, and more loneliness than I ever expected. I lost my mom, Leona, when I was 16, breast cancer. It happened fast, and even now I remember how quiet the house became after she was gone, like the walls themselves were grieving. But I wasn't alone. Rick, my stepfather, had been married to my mom for 5 years before she passed. He never once treated me like I wasn't his. He made my school lunches, showed up at every parent-teacher conference, and sat through endless dance recitals, cheering the loudest every single time. He never tried to replace my mom, but he stood exactly where she would have wanted someone to stand. When I met Tyler in college, it felt like a new chapter. He was smart, gentle, a little awkward in the best way. We were both working our way through student debt and late-night shifts at the campus bookstore. He was the first person I ever told about my mom without crying. He just listened and held my hand like that story mattered. I fell in love with that calm presence. He didn't rush me. He never pressured me. I thought I had found someone who could give me the emotional safety I had always needed. We got married 3 years ago. Nothing extravagant. Just a simple ceremony in my aunt's backyard. Fairy lights, soft music, close friends. Rick walked me down the aisle. Tyler cried when he read his vows. It felt right. It felt solid. Then there was Delilah, Tyler's mother. From the beginning, she didn't seem thrilled about me. At first, I thought it was just the usual protective mother-in-law thing. She always had this way of saying kind words with a cold edge, like complimenting my dress while criticizing my posture. She smiled at our wedding, but it didn't reach her eyes. She called me dear in public and her when she talked to Tyler alone. When we found out I was pregnant, everything shifted. I was terrified at first. It wasn't planned, but when I saw the test, my first instinct wasn't panic. It was wonder. I imagined what my mom would have said. I imagined her crying and kissing my forehead and knitting tiny socks like she used to do for my dolls. Tyler was surprised, but he smiled. He hugged me, kissed my stomach, and told me we'd figure it out together. Delilah didn't take it the same way. When Tyler told her over dinner, she barely blinked. She put her fork down, folded her hands, and said, "That's unfortunate timing." I remember Tyler trying to smooth it over, saying we were excited, that we were ready. She just shook her head and said, "Well, you've made your bed." After that, her visits got colder. She questioned every decision we made. "Are you sure you want to deliver at that hospital? Shouldn't you be working right now instead of buying nursery furniture? You don't think it's irresponsible to bring a child into this world before you're fully stable?" I tried to stay polite. I kept telling myself she'd come around once the baby arrived. People soften when they see new life. Maybe she'd change when she held her grandchild. I wanted to believe that. Rick, on the other hand, was thrilled from day one. He kept sending me name suggestions and baby advice he clearly Googled, but tried to pass off as wisdom. He drove me to doctor's appointments when Tyler had work. He put together the crib himself. Every time I talked to him, I felt like I could breathe again. So when my baby shower came around, I was determined to enjoy it. It was held at my best friend's house in her backyard under a white canopy strung with yellow and green paper lanterns. We had cupcakes, little games, silly onesies hung on a clothesline. Everyone showed up, my aunts, cousins, a few co-workers, and of course, Rick and Delilah. Tyler hovered near the grill, nervous about burning the burgers, trying to be the helpful husband. I appreciated that. I had spent weeks planning it. I wanted it to be something joyful, something my future self could look back on and remember, not the stress or the comments or the tension, but love. For a while, it seemed like that's exactly how it would go. Then Delilah stood up, and everything began to unravel. The sun was warm that afternoon, filtered through white fabric stretched across the backyard. Laughter rose in bursts, the kind that comes from inside jokes and shared memories. There was lemonade in mason jars, sugar cookies shaped like baby bottles, and a Polaroid camera station where guests pinned up snapshots of themselves next to handwritten wishes for the baby. It was the kind of moment I had longed for. Normal, happy, surrounded by people who cared. Delilah arrived late. That didn't surprise me. She walked in wearing a white linen dress, big sunglasses, and heels that clicked against the patio stone like a warning. She barely looked at me. She kissed Tyler on the cheek, gave a stiff hug to Rick, and sat in a corner of the yard next to her sister, barely acknowledging the decorations or the people who had come. It was clear she hadn't brought a gift bag, but I tried not to notice. I kept moving, smiling, checking on the food and playing hostess. People brought diapers, soft blankets, onesies with puns on them, and baby books signed with messages like, "You've got this, Mama." My best friend Serena made a speech about how I was going to be an amazing mom. Even my aunt, who rarely cried, got misty when she hugged me and said how proud my mom would have been. But under all that joy, I could feel it. The weight of Delilah's silence, the pointed glances, the sense that something was coming, but I didn't know what. After the cake was cut, I sat down on the love seat set up beneath a Welcome Baby Leona banner. Tyler stood behind me, resting his hands on my shoulders. I felt his thumbs press gently into my skin, a quiet reassurance. Then Delilah stood up. "I'd like to say something," she said, holding her wine glass like it was part of a toast. Conversations faded. Everyone turned to her. Her voice carried smoothly across the yard. "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate this occasion." She paused for a second, scanning the crowd. "I brought a few things," she said, reaching down and lifting a designer tote bag from beneath her chair. "Just some little tokens for the women in the family." She walked slowly, deliberately, first to her sister, handing her a silk scarf with a smile, then to her niece, who received a small gold bracelet. Her other daughter-in-law got a candle wrapped in tissue paper and ribbon. Each time, the recipient looked surprised, grateful, but confused. I waited. She hadn't looked at me once. When she finished handing out the last gift, she returned to the center of the yard. Her eyes finally locked onto mine. There was no warmth in them, no love, just the cold satisfaction of someone who wanted control and knew they had an audience. "I didn't bring anything for Amira," she said. Her voice was clear, calm, because I don't believe in rewarding mistakes. The air left the yard like a balloon popping. Silence fell so fast it felt like gravity had shifted. My stomach twisted. I froze. Every pair of eyes either darted away or flicked nervously between me and Tyler. I stared at her, waiting for someone, anyone, to say something. I turned my head slightly to look at my husband. His eyes dropped to the ground. His lips parted like he might speak, but no words came out. "Tyler," I whispered, barely able to get the word out. He didn't answer. I felt every muscle in my body tighten. I wanted to disappear. My fingers dug into the fabric of my dress. I tried to breathe, but my chest felt like it was being crushed from the inside. Delilah sat down again, crossing her legs, completely composed. Some of the guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few got up to refill drinks they didn't need. One of Tyler's cousins whispered something to her friend and walked toward the bathroom. No one said a word to me. I had never felt so humiliated in my life. Not even in high school, not even at my mom's funeral, not even when I found out I was pregnant and wasn't sure what we were going to do. This moment, surrounded by people, made me feel completely alone. And Tyler, he was right there, my husband, the father of my child, and he did nothing. I swallowed the lump in my throat and stood up, not sure if I was about to leave or scream. But before I could do either, I heard Rick push back his chair behind me. That sound changed everything. Rick stood up slowly. His chair scraped gently against the stone patio, and the sound made people turn toward him. He wasn't a loud man. He never needed to be. Rick was the kind of person who carried authority not through volume, but through presence. In that moment, his presence filled the entire space. I looked at him, unsure what he was about to do. Part of me expected him to walk over and hug me, whisper something comforting, but he didn't come to me right away. He stood there, tall and steady, holding something small in his hand, a little black velvet box, square, with the kind of worn edges that only come from time. He glanced around the crowd and then spoke, not loudly, but clearly enough for everyone to hear. "I didn't bring a gift for everyone today," he said. "Just one." The tension was immediate. Even Delilah froze. Rick rarely spoke in gatherings like this, and when he did, people listened. He wasn't confrontational by nature, but there was something in his voice that made silence fall over the entire yard. He stepped forward and looked at me. His eyes were soft, but there was something fierce behind them too, like he was standing in front of a fire but refusing to move. "This," he said, holding up the box, "belonged to your mother." Breath caught. My eyes snapped to the box in his hand. I hadn't seen it before. I didn't even know it existed. For a second, I forgot about the people staring, the shame sitting heavy on my shoulders, and the ache of Tyler's silence. Rick took another step closer. "She gave this to me before she passed, asked me to keep it safe for when the time felt right. She said she wanted you to have it when you became a mother." The box trembled slightly in his fingers. He opened it. Inside was a delicate gold locket, small, heart-shaped, with a single opal set in the center. I recognized it immediately. My mom used to wear it every day when I was little. I remembered tracing it with my fingers when she held me. I remembered seeing it tucked just under her blouse during school events and bedtime stories. Rick took it out of the box carefully and handed it to me. "She wore this the day you were born," he said. "She would have wanted your daughter to have it one day." I didn't know what to say. My hands shook as I took it. The weight of it in my palm was small, but the meaning was enormous. I looked up at him and saw the same tears forming in his eyes that were now burning in mine. Something shifted in the space around us. The shame that Delilah had tried to brand me with just minutes earlier began to lift. Her words, her judgment, her icy performance, they started to fade, because in that moment someone showed up for me. Someone reminded me who I was. Not a mistake, not an inconvenience. A daughter, a soon-to-be mother, a woman worth honoring. I clutched the locket to my chest. My voice shook, but I spoke. "She really saved this?" Rick nodded. "Every day. It was never hers anymore. It was always meant for you." The people around us were still quiet, but it wasn't the same silence anymore. I heard sniffling behind me. My friend Serena was crying openly. One of my aunts was wiping her eyes with a napkin. Even a few of Delilah's family members looked uncomfortable, no longer sure where to stand in this emotional divide. Delilah herself remained seated, her arms crossed, her face tight. I could feel her watching, probably furious that her moment of control had been swept away by something as simple and powerful as love. Rick placed a hand on my shoulder, steady and warm. "You're doing this without your mom, but you're not doing it alone." Behind me, Tyler shifted. He hadn't moved until now. I felt his hand return to my back, hesitant at first, then more certain. Maybe something inside him had finally clicked, or maybe he just saw what real support looked like and realized how far he had fallen short. But in that moment, I didn't need him to fix it, because Rick had already reminded me that I wasn't broken. And the locket resting against my chest told me I was exactly where I needed to be. The locket felt cool against my skin, its chain soft and delicate as Rick helped clasp it behind my neck. As it settled just above my heart, I reached up and touched it, grounding myself in the one thing that suddenly made me feel strong. The people around us were still quiet, but it wasn't that tense, brittle silence from earlier. It was something softer now, reverent, heavy with emotion. I looked out at the guests, unsure what I was supposed to do next. Say thank you? Sit down? Pretend nothing had happened? Then I saw Serena, my best friend, walk forward with slow, steady steps. Her eyes were red. She wrapped her arms around me, tight, and whispered into my ear, "Your mom would be so proud of you." That was all it took. The dam broke. My chest heaved with the first sob, and I couldn't hold it back. I didn't want to. I cried like I hadn't cried in years, not just because of Delilah or the humiliation or the hurt, but because I had been holding so much in for so long, trying to be composed, trying to be the bigger person, trying to ignore the ache of not having my mom beside me for the most vulnerable chapter of my life. And now, through Rick, it was like she had reached across time to remind me I wasn't alone. Then, something I never expected happened. Tyler stepped forward. His hands were trembling. His eyes, which had been downcast since Delilah's comment, now lifted. He looked at me first, then at his mother. He cleared his throat and spoke louder than I had ever heard him speak in public. "Mom," he said, "that was cruel." Delilah blinked. She opened her mouth like she was about to interrupt, but he held up his hand. "Number, I need to say this," he said. "You humiliated my wife. You embarrassed her in front of our family and friends, and you did it with no shame, like it was your right." Her face hardened. I was being honest. Tyler didn't back down. There's a difference between honesty and cruelty. Amira didn't ruin anything. She's carrying your grandchild. She deserves love and respect, and if you can't give her that, you don't get to be part of this. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Delilah went rigid, her lips pressed into a tight line, but Tyler kept going. "I've let you get away with too much for too long. I've kept quiet to avoid conflict, but not anymore. This is my family now. Amira and our baby come first." He turned to me. His voice softened. "I should have stood up sooner. I'm sorry." I stared at him, unsure how to respond. For the first time, I saw something new in his eyes. Not just guilt, but resolve. Something had cracked open in him, too. Maybe it took public humiliation to wake him up. Maybe it took seeing someone else love me the way he should have. Either way, the words he spoke in front of everyone mattered. Then Rick stepped beside him, placing a hand on Tyler's shoulder. "It takes courage to speak like that," he said. "Make sure you keep doing it." Delilah stood up. Her chair tipped slightly before she caught it. She didn't speak. She walked past us without saying a word and left through the side gate. A few of her relatives followed her, unsure of what to do, casting nervous glances behind them. No one stopped her. As the gate clicked shut, I felt something lift off my chest. For the first time that day, I inhaled fully. The shame, the embarrassment, the years of quiet insults and icy glances, they didn't own me anymore. The guests slowly returned to their seats. Serena handed me a glass of water. My aunt offered to pack up the extra food. People started talking again. Quietly, carefully, but with warmth. They avoided the awkwardness not because it didn't happen, but because something better had taken its place. After a while, I looked down at the locket again. I opened it. Inside was the old photo of my mom holding me in the hospital just minutes after I was born. Her hair was pulled back, her face flushed, but her eyes were alive with joy. She looked tired and radiant and completely full of love. Now, standing in that backyard with the baby I was about to bring into the world, I finally understood that look. 2 weeks later, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl, 7 pounds, 9 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and the same deep brown eyes my mother had. When the nurse placed her on my chest, I didn't cry right away. I just stared at her, memorizing every detail, feeling something rise in my chest that I had never felt before. It wasn't just love, it was something older and deeper. A sense of home I thought I had lost years ago. We named her Leona Grace, after my mom. In the hospital room, Rick was the first one to hold her after me and Tyler. He sat down in the chair by the window, his arms cradling her like he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. He looked at her, then at me, and said, "She's got her grandmother's strength already. You can see it in her jaw." I smiled. I didn't have words yet. Just the overwhelming feeling that everything had come full circle. My mom wasn't there in body, but I felt her everywhere, in the locket still hanging around my neck, in Rick's steady voice, in the peaceful silence of that room as our daughter slept for the first time. Tyler never apologized with flowers or big gestures after the baby shower. Instead, he changed his behavior. He began attending every prenatal class. He held me during contractions without flinching. He took night shifts with the baby when I was too tired to lift my head. He didn't try to fix what happened. He just showed up day after day without asking for credit. That mattered more than any speech. As for Delilah, she didn't come to the hospital. She didn't send a card or make a phone call. A week after we got home, she sent a message through one of Tyler's aunts saying she needed time and hoped the baby was doing well. I didn't reply. I wasn't angry. I just didn't have space in my life anymore for someone who couldn't see the beauty of the life I had created. The truth is, that baby shower wasn't the disaster I thought it was at the time. It was a breaking point that revealed everything I needed to know. It showed me who I could count on. It reminded me that love is not about blood or obligation. It's about choice. And Rick chose me. Again and again. My friends chose me. And in the end, Tyler chose to grow. Sometimes it takes a public wound to force private healing. That moment of humiliation, as painful as it was, gave birth to something far more important than anger or revenge. It gave birth to clarity. It taught me that standing alone doesn't mean you're unsupported. It means you're strong enough to know who you are even when others try to make you feel small. I will tell Leona that story one day, not to make her feel sorry for me, but to show her what it means to speak up for yourself and what it looks like when someone truly has your back. I'll show her the locket and tell her about the woman who wore it first. I'll tell her about Rick and how he stood up when no one else would. I'll tell her about Tyler and how love sometimes needs to be challenged to become real. And when she's older and finds herself in a moment where she's unsure, where someone tries to silence her or make her question her worth, I hope she remembers the women who came before her. I hope she remembers the story of how she came into this world, not surrounded by perfection, but wrapped in truth, resilience, and real love. Because in the end, that's what family is, not just the people who share your name, but the ones who show up when it matters most. And that day in the backyard when I was surrounded by silence, shame, and judgment, one man stood up. And by doing that, he reminded everyone, and most importantly me, that I was never a mistake. I was a beginning. Thank you for watching my story. If it touched you in any way or reminded you of your own journey, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Your voice matters here. If you believe in the power of standing up for others, in the strength of chosen family, or in the beauty of becoming something stronger through pain, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more real stories that speak to the heart. This isn't just a channel, it's a space for truth, for healing, and for reminding each other that we're never as alone as we think. I appreciate you being here. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of those who take care of you.